Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Audrey Ray. Did you watch my webinar last week? I hope you did. And if you didn't, you may want to make a note to watch it later today, definitely after this video. It's on my YouTube channel, so go check it out. So in that webinar, I was talking about the reasons why sometimes we lack self-discipline and what gets in the way when we're talking about time management, optimizing the time that we have, and getting more done. And somebody emailed me and said, Audrey, it'd be really helpful if you can have more tips on what to do, what not to do. And at first I thought, I already have so much on my website. I have lots and lots of blogs. In fact, if you go to thrivinginadmin.com and you look at resources and articles, there's a category there, especially for time management. But sure, why not? I know some people prefer videos. So here we go. I'm going to talk with you today about some simple tips that you can start implementing today. All right, so this slide was actually on last week's webinar, but that's the foundation of everything. It starts with structure and accountability. If you don't plan, if you don't get organized, time is always going to be an issue. So step one, identify priorities. So maybe I should have said clarify priorities. It's interesting when I work with coaching clients and I ask them about their priorities, most of the time they have too many. They may have 25 or 30 and that's not priorities anymore, that's too many. So you need to be crystal clear on what is perhaps the top 5, top 8, it depends on your work and your environment, but you can't have 50 priorities because when that happens, you basically don't have any priorities at all. So you've got to get really clear on what comes first. Second, you need to create a plan. So sometimes, well, just about everybody, you guys, you have yearly goals. At the end of every year, you have to write a report and things get measured based on your fiscal year or your academic year. Also, often you have quarterly goals, so that gets measured. But the issue is those quarterly goals don't quite translate well in terms of what are you supposed to do today. So what I recommend that you do is to be very clear on what you're going to accomplish each month. And it's not going to be the same every month, but you need to know what are you accomplishing this month and then next month and the months after that. So you also break it down into weekly goals because you know what happens if you don't do that. You'll get to the 22nd or 25th day of the month and you'll have accomplished very little because you were too far from the deadline to really take it seriously. So you want to make sure you're cutting your workload into weeks and you know each week what you're here to accomplish. And of course, it's important to know what you are going to accomplish each day. Again, it's not the same thing every day, but every morning you should know exactly what you are here to accomplish, what you want to get done before you shut off your computer for the day. I do hope you do shut off your computer at some point and you're not working 24/7, but that's a whole other conversation right there. All right, so you're going to have your plan with your goals. You're going to have clarity. You obviously need healthy boundaries with people. I talked about that in the webinar a little bit, and I go into great length in many blogs and in my time management course. So you've got plenty of resources there to see more about how to create them, how to implement them. I also added communicating new expectations because sometimes people are afraid of creating boundaries and changing expectations because of how people will react. Well, the truth is if you're changing what you're doing and you're not explaining anything, then yeah, of course, you're going to have some bizarre reactions. People are not going to understand where this is coming from. But as long as you're crystal clear, here is how things are going to work. I mean, don't phrase it like this, but you know what I mean? As long as you're communicating the new things you're doing and you're doing it tactfully, people will actually feel more at peace. They will trust you more because now they'll know what to expect. So it's not going to upset people. If anything, it's going to make you more trustworthy because in a way you become more predictable and more dependable. So those things are really good. Don't ever hesitate to do that and send me a message if you need some help there. All right, the third one, of course, is to observe how your days unfold because now you have goals every day. You know how you have structured your day and you need to be able to see what went wrong, what caused a disruption that perhaps you weren't sure how to handle so that you can make some changes and the next day you have a better system and you keep doing that until your days are as much in control as possible. Because again, there's things you cannot control, but for whatever is within your control, don't just leave it up to people, fate, events to decide how your days unfold. All right, so before you begin anything, I can't emphasize that enough. I always tell my clients, know your outcome, know your outcome. That's something that I got from my Tony Robbins days. Know your outcome. Anytime you do something, you need to know what you're here to accomplish. What results do you want to create? And when I worked in higher ed, that's one of the things that drove me a little bit crazy. I, I had to work with certain people who loved meetings, processes, spreadsheets, reports, tracking stuff, even though we weren't quite sure why it made sense to spend dozens of hours tracking things that really didn't reflect anything related to real results. And it kind of drove me bonkers, to be honest with you, because I had an MBA. I've always been really wired for productivity, efficiency, and having a good return on every hour that you spend working. You're getting paid. You got to make sure you're creating value there. We can't just hang out and chit chat all day. So those things drove me a little bit nuts, and it's almost cultural. So hopefully you have no idea what I'm talking about. Hopefully you're thinking, oh, we don't do this here. We're very focused. We work hard. We get results. And if that's the truth, awesome. Put that on your gratitude list. But trust me, some people unfortunately don't have that kind of environment. So it doesn't matter if your culture is supporting it or not. Do it for yourself. Whenever you start something, you need to know exactly what you want to accomplish. So let's say you're working on a project, and sometimes people will just start, they'll do step one, and then there's delays, there's interruptions, and then they get to a point where they're too close to the deadline, and somebody who said would do something isn't doing it, somebody's procrastinating, things are falling apart, and sure enough, they can't meet that deadline. But that could have been easily prevented because they probably had 3 months, 6 months, or maybe even an entire year to get the thing done. It just wasn't managed properly. So this is actually quite simple. You just outline your steps. What is it going to take to create the results that you seek? So write those steps, define responsibilities, who is going to do what, and definitely create accountability measures, because not everybody is self-motivated to follow through on their word. I think sometimes when we talk about integrity, people just think it means being honest, as in not cheating or lying or doing something pretty awful. But integrity is also about, are you actually keeping your word? And unfortunately, tons and tons of people are constantly saying yes to things that they can't do, making promises where they can't deliver, and apologizing for letting you down time and time and time again. This happens a lot. So you don't really want to allow for this to keep happening. So you want to have those accountability measures and have some, what I call buffer time. So let's say if you need something from somebody on a Friday, but if on Friday you discover it's not done, now you're in trouble. So what you'll do is you'll ask for it by maybe Tuesday. And if by Tuesday night it's not delivered, or it's done wrong, or there's any kind of issue, you can talk to them on Wednesday, give them 2 more days, or at least 1 day. Depends on how bad the stuff they give you is, or if it even exists at this point. But let's just say you're giving them Wednesday to work on it. Maybe Thursday you take another quick look to make sure it's solid by Friday. And some of you may think, Audrey, I don't have time to micromanage, but this is not micromanaging, this is accountability. When you have accountability measures, people start to actually follow through on their word because they know you're going to ask. So it's only going to take a few minutes of your time, but it's going to completely change what the other person is doing. In most cases, there's always that one person somewhere that's exceptionally hard to manage, but that's, again, a whole other video. On this one, we're just going to assume that your teams are good, you've got great people there, and they just needed that little accountability. All right, block time on your calendar for action steps. That's something too that is so simple, and yet not everybody does it. In fact, most people don't. So maybe you're coming back from a meeting and that is changing your project, that's changing what you're working on, or maybe you're just doing some planning on that project yourself and you're seeing there's those action items that need to happen, but if you don't calendar them, there's still a chance that you're not going to find time to do it. So make sure to do it. Make sure that you have time allocated for it. Maybe one little caveat is sometimes I get clients who tell me they schedule 8 to 10 hours of work every day. And I asked them, well, tell me about crisis, emergencies, interruptions, and in their job, they have a lot of that. So then I tell them, I'm sorry, but you really can't be blocking 8 hours of tasks when you already know that you're going to have maybe 2 to 5 hours taken by something unexpected that you didn't foresee and unfortunately you have to deal with. So when you're blocking off time on your calendar, don't expect to have 8 hours of uninterrupted time if you know that you never get 8 hours of uninterrupted time. And what I know I do personally, and some of my clients do, is that I block 1 hour every day for something unexpected. So when I get a call from a client and they need a proposal that's quite urgent for some training, or maybe they're just having an emergency and they need to talk to me, I know that there's always 1 hour every day that's available for something that I was not planning on, because I'm extremely organized, I'm big on boundaries, and I just don't want to create a life where I have to make people wait when they have a genuine reason to want my time soon. But I also don't want to be working days and nights and weekends, because that's just no life. So anyway, next bullet, seek excellence, not perfection. See, that's really an issue too with time management, is when instead of having reasonable expectations to create something that is excellent, that is outstanding, now we're looking at perfection. Perfection is really the fear of something going wrong. It's lack of trust in ourselves. It's lack of trust in handling small mistakes should something happen. And honestly, I used to think that seeking perfection was good, but it's really not. Again, it comes from fear. It can be pretty debilitating. And the worst thing is, it's going to cause you to spend too much time on things. So you definitely want to let go of perfection and seek excellence instead. Oh, my computer went to sleep. All right, next slide. I love this. Win the day. You really want to be on top of things. So how do you win the day? You need to know what time of the day you feel most productive and most creative, so that you can plan the right tasks at the right time. I'm sure you've heard, eat your frog first, do what you don't like first. The thing is, when we are dreading something, procrastinating, we feel it, right? It's kind of heavy. Your whole body feels it emotionally. It's an energy drain. So it's best to just get it done, get it over with, and then you can feel really good the rest of the day. Do what you prefer, maybe do what's a bit easier, do the things that make you happy, because you know you've taken care of that frog that you didn't want to eat. And you're going to feel so much better. It's a little bit of self-discipline, but then after that, your day is golden, so do it. Keep your daily goals reasonable. That's something too that I see where people set themselves up for failure. Basically, their daily goals are insane. They want to squeeze in one day what is going to take an entire week to do. So let's say if you have 15 items that are on your mind, but you're probably only going to have time to do 3, then make it clear. Today, you're here to do those 3 things. And you're going to get them done no matter what. No avoidance, no procrastination, no excuses. You're going to get it done. But when those 3 things are done, you can give yourself a little bit of a break, because you're not trying to get 15. That would be unrealistic. And by having something more reasonable on your to-do list or on your plan for the day, you're more likely to follow through, and you're definitely going to be making more progress a lot quicker. Group together similar activities. So you know how it feels when you're trying to work on something like a report, where you have to be focused and you need that quiet time. It's highly analytical. And then you have to run to a meeting and you come back, and it's hard to get back into the flow of things. And maybe you only have 40 minutes, and then you have to do somebody's evaluation and talk to them about performance issues, which is not really fun most of the time, unless you have this outstanding person who's all excited to be receiving feedback and wanting to learn. But usually those things are not necessarily pleasant for everybody involved. So, you know, when you're just shifting from one thing to another, you waste an enormous amount of time just adjusting with your mood, your energy, the flow. So try to group together activities that require a very similar type of energy and mindset. Okay, and again, focus on your priorities. What I find fascinating is how often people will just forget what their priorities are when somebody is dumping their priorities on them. So if somebody is feeling a sense of urgency about something where they messed up, and honestly, it's really not something that should be dumped on you in any way at all. But yet somehow it is. You've got to realize that, oh yeah, this is big for that other person, but I can be kind once in a while, but I can't really have a habit of rescuing everybody, because what about my priorities? When am I going to work on my stuff? So it's not called being selfish. It means being really good at your job, taking care of your responsibilities, being fair, and empowering other people to stop making excuses. So please stop doing other people's jobs. That may sound, I don't know how this sounds to you. Some people sometimes tell me, but Audrey, I don't have a choice because I can't count on them. I can't rely on them. And I end up doing everybody's jobs. And that's really the issue. So if you want to win the day, it is your day. Trust me, you've got enough with your responsibilities, with your fires you have to put out. You seriously don't need to be handling other people's jobs. Okay, this one, of course, be efficient. Don't allocate more time to any tasks than necessary. Have you heard of Parkinson's law? Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. It's fascinating because I thought it was just me, but it's not. It's actually everybody that I've ever met. It's that if we have an hour to do something, we're probably going to take an hour because we could get it done maybe in 30 minutes, but there's that extra half hour. So we're looking to refine it, or maybe we're adding complexity to what the project is. Maybe we're going to start researching things that we don't even need to research because we have enough experience and expertise, but somehow because there's a full hour available, we're going to fill it. So instead of looking at how much time do you have, if the time you have is actually a little bit on the generous side, it's definitely time for you to say, no, wait a minute, this I could do in 20 minutes. So I'm going to book 20 minutes. I'm going to watch the clock, stay focused, no social media, no distractions, getting it done in 20 minutes, no matter what. Okay, also look for things that you can stop doing, do less often, or you can do faster. We are all creatures of habits. And I know when I ask my clients to tell me about their days, quite often they'll tell me about certain activities that they do. Maybe it's tradition, maybe it's a culture, maybe it's a habit. And when I ask them, well, what value does that create? And they say, well, I'm not that sure. Maybe it may be good. Yeah, maybe good for relationships to have all those meetings. Yes, that might be a good way to stay connected to people. And as we look more into what are all those meetings, is that really a good way to be connected with people and have good relationships? We realize that no, anytime we're wasting time, it's going to create some resentment from people who just don't have that time to waste, and they want to keep things moving faster. So faster here is the solution, or maybe it's less often. It's really interesting. I'm doing this video in 2020, so we still have most people working from home, and now it's September, so we're used to it. But it's funny, people's relationship with Zoom is so strange. You have some people who are addicted to it. Anything that could be a 5-minute phone call is turning into a Zoom meeting, and you're seeing the person face to face, and you're connecting and talking about the kids and the weekend and this and that. And it feels rude if you're cutting them short, but the truth is, if every 5-minute call turns into a 30-minute or hour-long Zoom, it's exhausting. And honestly, just staring into a webcam all day is exhausting too. So maybe do a little bit less of that. I know there are comments. Please put in the comment if you feel like Zoom is being overused in your workplace to confirm. I think some people need to hear it. There may also be people who feel the opposite, to feel like there's not enough communication, but that would be, again, a subject for a different video. All right, and the next one, remember, it's okay to say no to interruptions. I think that sometimes we feel like, okay, fine, I have to deal with this, I have to accept this. But the truth is, most of you really don't. There's only a few situations where politically it would be a mistake to say no. But unless there are some significant consequences, when it just comes to regular relationships with people you work with every day, being much more upfront and honest, but being kind and tactful, I can't emphasize that enough, about what you need to be able to do your work. I mean, what it's going to take for you to succeed and to stay focused. When you help people understand what it's like to be in your shoes, most of them will be perfectly fine. They want to let you get your work done. They had no intention of ruining your day. I mean, most people really don't want to cause trouble to others. It's just something that is being done because nobody is explaining how it's received. Okay, next one, lose bad habit. So everybody is different, and I don't know what you specifically may have as a bad habit, but what I see that's really dysfunctional is when people are checking their email all day long. And what this causes is not just a constant interruption, but if you're responding right away to something that's neither urgent nor important, and now you're engaging with somebody and maybe they'll email you back, and it's that back and forth, and it's taking too long, and it can eat up half your day just doing emails and accomplishing very little. Where perhaps if you are in a context where you can stay away for 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, again, I don't know, depending on the type of job you have, I don't know what will work for you. I know for me, I check email 3 times a day. I check in the morning, midday, end of the day. That's it. Because I can't be checking email. Well, first of all, I spend a lot of time on coaching calls. So when I'm with a client, I'm with a client. Like, I don't care what else is going on. I'm not taking any interruption. They deserve me 100% focused. So there goes, email. I'm not looking. And but even if I'm doing something creative, writing a blog or preparing training, creating a PowerPoint for a client, I don't want to be interrupted. And if I start looking at emails, it will take 5 times longer. So please stop checking your email all day. You're going to know how often is necessary. I don't want you to get in trouble for not being responsive, but trust me, you don't need to be on it nonstop. Avoid multitasking. So it's interesting too how some people will say that multitasking works for them, and maybe it does. So if you're one of them, then more power to you. But research really shows that being focused, being mindful, taking care of one task and getting it done is faster and leads to better quality work. So I personally don't really like anything that's causing the brain to be more scattered. We already have electronics, smartphones, interruptions, apps, notifications. We already have so much that's messing with the brain. I think that if you can learn to focus, do one task at a time and do it well and do it quickly, I really think that not only is it better for your work, but also for your sanity, for your ability to feel more peace, less stress, to sleep better at night. So I don't know, I'm not here to tell people what to do, with those kinds of choices, but I really think electronics and constant, those jolts of dopamine that we feel all day being on technology is extremely unhealthy. So if you can just focus, I'm sure it's going to be good for you. So much for not telling you what to do, huh? Do whatever you want, but I'm sure it's going to be better for you. All right, next one. Don't indulge in long meetings without clear purpose and outcomes. Okay, this is still happening. I can't believe it. This is still happening. People scheduling meetings. Why? Because it's a recurring meeting every other Tuesday at 2 p.m. And here we are. Why are we here? I don't know, because it's on the calendar. So that's crazy. Stop doing that. You have to have a clear agenda, but a note on agendas. An agenda is not a list of talking points. It's not just topics. You need to know for each topic, what is the outcome that you seek? So maybe you're here to communicate information, and that's good enough. Or maybe the goal on one topic that you're discussing is to make a decision. What are you guys going to do? Who is going to do what and when? Or maybe it's an update on how well something is working, and maybe it's time to change the strategy or maybe rethink some decisions that have been made. But you really need to know, what is this about, instead of just talking and talking and talking, and at the end you have pages and pages of notes. But if I were to ask you, so what new value was created, or what outcome was created, what results did you guys get, what decisions did you guys make? And if you just tell me, well, we all got to talk a lot, and we're going to talk again in 2 weeks, those things kind of scare me, because from a place of time management, it looks like we're just indulging in process, and forgetting about results. So I would really caution you against that. All right, make sure you don't reward unwanted behavior. That happens all the time. So imagine if you have somebody who is interrupting you all the time, asking too many questions, And the answers may be already on your website, or the answer may be something they have access to somehow, but they're too lazy to go find it for themselves. So maybe they are asking you to help constantly and interrupting and being that time suck. Or maybe they just, well, anyway, I'm going to stop with excuses. You probably already know in your life if you have someone like that that is already taking too much of your time. So what I mean by don't reward unwanted behavior. What's the example of somebody asking you questions where they can find the answer elsewhere? So maybe it's on your college website, maybe it's published somewhere. Every time you're giving them an answer, you are rewarding them taking your time. So if every time you're annoyed, but you make it easy, that's a reward. So you've got to really stay strong and tell them it's on the website and have them look at the website, because you don't want them asking you time and time and time and time again something that they can access themselves really quickly, easily, effortlessly. Next one, remember that what you allow continues. And here I'm really thinking in terms of accountability. Sometimes people tell me, that employee, they're not interested, they're just waiting for retirement, they don't meet deadlines, they don't do quality work, they don't proofread, they make mistakes. And I say, all right, well, we have definitely a motivation issue here. The engagement is low. Tell me, what have you done in terms of accountability to make sure expectations are clear, making sure that they're speaking to you often in terms of showing progress and letting you help them succeed. And also we're looking at what's been done to keep them motivated and engaged. Basically, you want to do all that you can do as a supervisor, manager, and leader. And sometimes we blame people because of their bad attitude, but we forget to ask ourselves, did I really do my job here? And many times people don't because they feel they don't have time. But honestly, if you have employees that could be motivated to do outstanding work, but they get no attention from you, they get away with stuff they shouldn't get away with, which in a way is showing them that it's okay to be a slacker. Maybe their current behavior is the result of not feeling connected, not feeling engaged, not feeling that connection with you, and that can be changed, that can be improved. So remember that if you want something to stop, you can't allow it. You have to hold people accountable, but in a nice way. You know, it doesn't sound punitive, and it's not about micromanaging. It's being an inspirational leader, really. Okay, let's see. What's the next one? Reduce interruptions. Let some calls go to voicemail. I don't know why some people feel like they must take every call. Sometimes you really have to protect your time. And especially if you don't even recognize who's calling, or if you do recognize who's calling and clearly this is not somebody that you need to be talking to right now, let some calls go to voicemail. It will be fine. Life is not going to end. Ask for email instead of meeting. This happens to me every single day. I get requests from people that say, hey, Audrey, I want to talk to you. And those are complete strangers from the internet. They say, I have an opportunity for you. And they don't realize that I am a time management freak, and it is not likely that I will blindly give my time for something I don't understand, not knowing if it's in alignment with my goal for somebody I don't know. And usually they're just trying to sell me some stuff, or they just want me to hire them. And it's just really sad because it's total random. It's never because there's a real purpose. It's just people feeling entitled to my time. And I'm sure this may be happening to you, hopefully in a less disturbing way, because we're talking about, at least those are your staff, right? Those are people on your campus or some students, but at least those are people you have a connection with. But still, even though it may be a bit more justified, before you say yes to a meeting, you need to know what the meeting is about. So ask for an email. Maybe an email is really all you're going to need, and maybe that's going to take 1.5 minutes, as opposed to a meeting, which is never shorter than 15-20 minutes. Let's face it, even if it could be, it usually isn't. And if it looks like the email is not going to be enough, it has to be a meeting, still ask for an agenda and make sure that they can identify what results they want to create through that meeting. Because a lot of time they haven't thought about it, and they may look at you like, wait, what? What was that? So maybe you phrase it differently, but you see where I'm going with that. People need to spend a minute realizing why it is they need your time before they start taking your time. So again, don't allow that. You need to maybe get it done through an email, or at least you need to have an agenda to know whether you're really going to say yes to that meeting. This may sound harsh, and I can imagine people viewing and say, well, I can't because of this, I can't because of that, or not with this person. And yes, of course, there's times where we just have to take a chance and hope that will be a productive time. But I'm not talking about the times where you don't have a choice. I'm talking about the times where you absolutely do have a choice, but you don't realize you do. So you got to learn to see the difference. Keep meetings focused and short. Probably already said that a million times, right? You can tell I'm not a fan of long meetings. Find acceptable times to close your door, or if you're working from home, just having times where you're not that available. I like the idea of being very accessible. In fact, I don't think you can be a leader if you're not accessible. People need to be able to access you and your time when there's a good reason for it. But this open door policy where people step by all the time and just interrupt, it's just a massive time suck, and it's not justified. I've had clients who were struggling with adrenal fatigue, who weren't sleeping, who were kind of falling apart health-wise because of that, because they said yes to everything, and it's just not sustainable. And then when you feel this bad, when you're tired all the time, you're exhausted all the time, you're not going to be as present, you're not going to be as charismatic, not going to be as effective. So your desire to perhaps be kind or please everybody is actually going to sooner or later lead to consequences. So make sure you get that handled before you're having issues. All right, so I sure hope that now you're ready to commit to success. So I want to ask you, what are you going to start doing? So please put that in the comments. What new thing are you going to start doing? And maybe even more importantly, what are you going to stop doing? Perhaps it was a habit and you realize it doesn't serve you, it's not good for your work, not helpful for the people you lead, and it's time to stop. So please put that in the comments. I would love to see. And some of you might say, Audrey, you know, your stuff is not new, and I already knew all that. And I would say, well, duh, I know that's why I didn't even think to do a video about those tips, because they are so basic and fundamental. And yes, if you read blogs, books, if you go to conference, you know all that. But that's really not the question. The question is, are you implementing what you know? And that's what last week's webinar was about, is that it's usually not that we have no idea what to do, is that we don't do it. So you've got to figure out what's stopping you from implementing what you know is going to work. So maybe you think it's self-discipline, but there could be something a little bit deeper there, where we need to change your perspective on something so that it doesn't hold you back anymore. There's usually fear of something going wrong, or fear that we're going to lose something, or fear we're going to upset someone. So it's important to be able to see what this is really about, so that you can implement those quick time management tips and many, many, many others. So if you feel like, okay, I'm working too much, I'm working every night, I don't get my weekends off, I'm tired, this is it, it has to change. The best way to change, honestly, is one-on-one coaching, because you have somebody that helps you every step of the way with a customized approach, somebody who's going to keep you energized, excited, somebody will keep you accountable too. I mean, in a nice way, but still we create results. We don't chit chat for the sake of chit chatting. Every week is something significant. And just, you know, think about it. Your life definitely will transform when you're able to change certain habits and just start feeling so much better. If you're watching this and say, oh, yeah, she needs to talk to my team, then right now, again, September 2020, because of COVID, I'm not doing much traveling. Would make no sense to go to your campus because you guys are not there. But with Zoom, we can still do some engaging training. We can make it interactive, and it's worked really well. So keep that in mind. If you have questions, anything, you can contact me on my website, thrivinginadmin.com. And for those of you who are serious about managing your time the best way possible, those who really want to make a change, but maybe you don't really feel like, for whatever reason might be, working with a coach, I have a solution for you that's really easy. I have a time management course that is self-paced. So everything is pre-recorded, ready for you. It's a digital download, so you can start right away. And it's only $47. It's super cheap because I didn't want you to have to ask yourself, is it worth the money? Am I going to implement it? Is this something that's really going to change my life? So I thought, let's make it super, super inexpensive. So hopefully that's something that you will consider, because you don't get one-on-one time with me, obviously, but you get everything that you need with videos, audio recordings, worksheets, and this will give you everything you need to turn around how your work life unfolds, because you deserve health, vitality, and some free time to live your life. So anyway, it was lovely to chat with you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave some comments. I would really like to hear your feedback. Tell me more about what you'd like in future videos.